familiar with the European World Tour and pro teams, some of the teams that, for example, I have seen in the Tour of Rwanda earlier this year, but also a lot of teams that we do not know yet, and we have to familiarize ourselves a little bit with the different jerseys. There's a lot of red going on in the peloton, which is slightly confusing, but yeah, that happens. We had a blue year, we had a black year, and apparently now we have a red year. And the women's peloton have a pink, purple, fade, beach, sunset year.
It's always very difficult. I covered the national track championships, the British ones at the start of the year, where there was Team Breeze, there was Wales, and I think a development team from Wales, and at one stage, I think in the Kieran, maybe in the semi-final or final, every one of them had a red top on. So it was always always very difficult. And I know that in some occasions like that, especially in the track, they try and kind of mix it up with a different maybe colour helmet or gloves or something like that. But it's always very difficult. I know that in the past that some commentators found it difficult to split the Yates brothers up because they look very similar.
Yeah.
But
Most
now
definitely.
they've changed teams. It's a lot easier. But yeah, look, this is very typical of Langkawi. Like no other race, we're on a big wide road, not a huge peloton. 112 riders in this peloton. A lot of chance to move because normally when we get inside the last 10 kilometres, you're worried about position. Well, you can see that there's a lot of riders just sitting back. This is what I said. Was it yesterday that I used to wait to about 20 kilometres to go in the sprint finish, and then before we didn't have to wear helmets, and I used to go back with 20 kilometres to go, put my helmet on, back up, and there was always always enough time to move up. And a lot of the sprints, I wasn't a kind of top sprinter, but I could sometimes finish kind of top 10. And I was always trying to leave it as late as possible because when you kind of push and shove and ride towards the front, you are using a bit of energy and your teammates. Well, if you can just sit in that kind of sweet spot in the middle of the peloton and hope, nothing happens, then sometimes you can get a good result out of it. So I'm starting to see a little bit more bunching up now, but with Lotto Soudal coming up to join the forces at the front. But with these big wide roads, you can kind of leave it quite late.
Yeah, it's a bit like American racing, isn't it? When we still had racing in the United States with these big wide roads where you could just have basically all the teams lined up next to each other, leading up to the finish. And I've spoken to a lot of riders coming from America in the women's peloton, and they find that one of the most difficult things of racing in Europe, that the roads are so narrow and that everything is about positioning. Because if you race in the States, or even in Australia for that matter, if you're just strong enough, you can make your way around the peloton and move to the front. And in European races, especially Belgium, for example, there's just no room.
I always find these roads a little bit more dangerous, big wide roads dangerous, because technically, if you've got good form on a technical course and smaller roads, you're at the front. If you aren't, you're at the back. That's the kind of questions answered. So if you've got some good form, it's a lot easier to stay near the front. But on these kind of big wide roads, it's a lot easier to get swamped because people can come up at different times, and it's like a kind of washing machine effect. But the thing about it is, going from 7 kilometres to go, we can see Thomas de Gent here for Lotto Soudal at the front in the red. That to do this in a 5, you have to work from the sprinter back. So the sprinter does the last kind of 250. Who else can ride at 55, 60 kilometres an hour to lead them up to that? And you now find that the sprint used to kind of open up about 3 kilometres to go. Now it opens up about 2 kilometres to go, because in a lot of the top sprints they're getting so fast, and there's only so many riders that can ride that fast in a lead out train, and that's why we're seeing micro trains, because to sit behind, in the days of kind of Cipollini and Pataki and these sort of riders, to sit behind 6 or 7 riders and you're the last man, those days are gone. And to manoeuvre, more teams have got lead out trains now, so it gets rather kind of complicated. So you're looking for that kind of micro train, and if you got micro train, you've got less riders. If you get less riders, you have to leave it as late as possible, and that's why we're seeing it kind of opening up for a lot of the sprinters in the last 2 kilometres now.
Well, the run-in for today, look at that. Great to see so many people already waiting for the riders. Yeah, the run-in for today's finish for Max Kanter, yeah, he's been in the top 10 numerous times this year. His best place so far has been third on different occasions in Germany and Belgium, and yesterday, of course. And it would be nice for him if he finally gets that win.
You're just hoping that he wins a few lengths in front of everybody else, so you can use that saying, he won at a canter. It's an English saying, won easily.
Yeah, I got it. We got a really, really big peloton making their way towards the town of Raup in the district of Pahang, with 91,000 people living there. Of course, they will not always all be there at the finish line, but we had a good crowd there. The Ara Pro Racing team are moving to the front as well with their train there on the left side of the road. We see the Koning Quickstep trying to Alpecin de Koning leaning up there at the left side. Also the Lotto Soudal train still in order. They are getting to the front with Erlen Blikra as well for the UNOX team. Joel Suter there, the big guy from Team Emirates, is moving to the front, trying to find his teammates who are nicely inside of the peloton. We have Max Kanter together with Matthias Norsgaard as his lead-out man presenting. And this is now David van der Poel at the front of the peloton, controlling the situation in the final 3 kilometers. I'm looking for an indicator, Brian, on the side of the road where we are, because yesterday all of a sudden we were in the final kilometer and we were not completely aware that we were, or I was not completely aware that we were already in the final kilometer. You were, actually. So I'm looking for indicators of, I don't think there's going to be a big arch for the final kilometer, but that regulations say that there should be a flamme rouge.
Small sign at the road, but you know they're waiting. It's just the shape of the peloton now. We are getting close to the 2 kilometres to go now, because we can see the shape. We can see the riders coming up. I just told you about the situation. You have to leave it as late as possible. Going at this speed, they're definitely around the 2 kilometre to mark, maybe inside the last 2 kilometres, because you know they want to kind of whip up the pace. That you could see that with 3 kilometres to go, a few teams were sitting back. Alpecin, De Koning with the team at the front, but now is the big battle coming close to 1 kilometre to go now.
It's going really, really fast. We have a lead-out train for Astana together with Igor Chan, the national champion, and Gidik doing the work as well.
1 to go
for the lead-out. We have 1 to go. Thank you, Brian. We have a little bit of shoulder barging there between Alpecin de Koning and Movistar as we make our way to the finish line for the final kilometre of stage 2. A helicopter shot like this is impossible to identify, but we now have the champion from Kazakhstan. He's done his job. Gidik is the last man in front of Syriza, but already fighting for that wheel is the man from Team Movistar, Norsgaard. He's glancing over his shoulder to see if Max Kanter is still there. In the pink, we also have that sprint train there with the 2 Van den Berg. Julius van den Berg doing the lead out there for Marijn van den Berg. Erlen Blikra is trying to make his way to the front as well. Tucked still in the peloton in 8th, 9th position is Mareczko. On the wheel of Mareczko we find Jeinat Ranse van Rensburg and also Milano. Everybody is trying to get that wheel of Mareczko. Peñalver as well for Burgos. Final 300 meters, a last lead out there from Lotto Soudal. We have Syriza is already at the front right now and he has to follow the wheel of Mareczko. We have Blikra, we have Molano, we have Syriza, and all the way on the inside, one of the riders, it's Molano who wins. Molano who wins this race with a really well-timed last jump. But Brian, this shot is making my life really difficult.
Look, it was a bit of a blanket there, and you know, when I was thinking that it was looking perfect for Syriza again, he got caught on the front, I think, with about 300 metres to go. He got caught pretty much on his own, and he'd nobody in front of him, so he was too far towards the front. And Milano came down the right-hand side, just managed to nip inside where the kind of barriers were protruding out there, but it was well timed there from Milano. But just unfortunately for Syriza, maybe it's the confidence from yesterday, just going to get propped on the front and got hit from behind, unfortunately there. But I think he's done enough to keep a hold of that jersey for another day, up to Genting Highlands tomorrow. But it was always going to be a messy sprint. You could see them just about 3 kilometres to go, all kind of holding back. 2 kilometres, they started to whip up the pace into the last kilometre, and then all hell broke loose. And it was always going to be very difficult to lead out in these type of finishes. But Milano, disappointing yesterday, got the stage today.
And we have some nice refreshing showers there behind the finish line. Very compact peloton. I think everybody's already across the finish line. Yesterday we had riders crossing the line 20, even 30 minutes back. But it seems like everybody is in at the moment, with a win for Juan Sebastian Molano.